carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members. Unlimited defense budgets, unmatched legal expertise. Carry the same level of support police officers have. Carry CCW Safe, the highest caliber.
And we're back. And I'm Chris Evan, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, and I'm joined by my friend General Vallely. Good to see you, General.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Glad to be with you again. Happy New Year.
Likewise. We have quite a few new followers, General. Could you give them the Cliff Notes version on your background?
Well, sure. I graduated from West Point in 1961, went into the infantry, airborne ranger, recon, and spent my first 3 years with the airborne in Europe in the early 60s, then to Vietnam twice later on. I was a company commander over there, an aide-de-camp and an intelligence officer. And I ended up my career in special operations. My last job was Deputy Commander, U.S. Army Pacific. Then a few years later, I got picked up by Roger Ailes as the senior military analyst for Fox News. That was back in 2001, 1 week after 9/11. And I was with them for about 8 years. And then General McInerney and I formed a foundation called Stand Up America US. The website is standupamericaus.org. We've been around quite a while. We focus on national security primarily and intelligence. We also write plans. We wrote a new plan for Trump for modernizing our military. We also sent him a plan called Operation Sinaloa to take down the cartels. And so we're actively updating those plans. So we have a lot of projects this year that are planned. And I would ask anybody to come donate, help us out at standupamericaus.org. All of our 6 books that we published are on that website as well. Betrayal of Treason, Dismantling of America, and we put it all together, connected the dots for the American people, so they can understand what's happened and who created this dismantling of our Constitution and why, and also all the names that are associated with treason in America as far as we have analyzed it, including Biden, Obama, Mayorkas,
our friend John Brennan,
Soros, Milley. I mean, there's a whole list of them. So anyhow,
there sure is. I would add as well that you're a prolific writer.
Thank you.
The volume of written content that you put out is significant and super high quality. And I would encourage people to check out your Substack for that as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
All right. So we're going to jump right in to these terrorist attacks. We've got the guy in New Orleans, New Year's Eve, who appears to be connected now to the Tesla bomber in Vegas, although there's some suspicious intel coming out of that. And then lo and behold, not only are those two connected, but they were all at Fort Bragg around the same time as Ryan Routh, the second Trump assassin. Mm-hmm. And then you have Ryan Routh and the Green Beret were both in the practice of recruiting people to fight in Ukraine, a specialist to be in Ukraine. So there's all kinds of different angles of this going on. I'm going to pull up just the first of many stories that we've got on this, and we're going to respect your time. Of course, I know you have a limited amount of time, but here's one at Fort Liberty. I don't know about you, but it's Fort Bragg to me. Always
Fort Bragg.
Right. Just quick question on that. Any chance this new admin will change the names back to what they should be?
I understand they're going to change them back, so we'll see what happens. Yes, there is a plan to do that.
Good to know. Good to know. That's fantastic. Okay, so January 1st, 2025, attacks occurred in New Orleans and Las Vegas, leading to casualties and injuries. Social media posts have highlighted that the suspects in these incidents previously served at Fort Bragg. Authorities are investigating if there might be any connections between these individuals or if their military background played a role in the events. And then breaking news this afternoon, the suspects in yesterday's attack on Bourbon Street in New Orleans and Trump Tower in Las Vegas both served at Fort Bragg. the same military base that Ryan Routh visited over 100 times before attempting to take Donald Trump's life. So some interesting stuff there, but I'll move on to the next one here. By now you've heard that the New Orleans attack terrorist Jabbar and Las Vegas terror attack bomber Livelsberger served together in Afghanistan, but phone records now show that the two recently communicated. Why is the FBI saying the two attacks aren't related when they 1000% know that they are? I don't know if I go so far as to say 1000%, but General, give me your thoughts on this. I mean, there seems to be an awful lot of coincidental stuff here, and I'm not a big believer in coincidences. What are your thoughts on these three guys being connected?
Well, we know number one, thousands have come across our border. 30 to 40,000 Chinese have been flown in through not Juarez, but Tijuana,
Okay.
and into San Diego County. We know they've come across the border from multiple nations. We know many of them have terrorist connections, even to the cartels who have funded terrorism to a great degree. So you have all of those things playing out, and they're all over the country. We don't know where they all are. So as they surface, the question comes to mind, Chris, is this a coordinated effort of all of a sudden we have an incident in New Orleans, Bourbon Street, we have an incident in Las Vegas, and then an incident tomorrow somewhere. Are these lone wolf? Or are they sort of connected, like you say, at the lower level between the three gentlemen that you mentioned? Or is there a coordinated command and control that's guiding these people to conduct these terrorist operations in designated locations? Now, this is where good intelligence comes in. This is where the FBI should be focused on entirely, on these pockets. Even the gangs in Aurora, Colorado, what are they involved in? So they're all spaced out throughout the United States. This is a major challenge for us. It's a major challenge for the police, the sheriffs, in the local area to determine where they're located and what future plans they may have to execute future terrorist operations in the United States, killing more Americans and so on. So that's sort of where I'm coming from. We don't know quite definitively yet what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. My personal feeling is there's an awful lot of coincidences here. If they're not related to each other, very coincidental stuff.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to hear what comes of that. I noticed that Senator Kennedy out of Louisiana said today that there's a lot more information that's not being released to the public right now, and that he's aware of it. He's been briefed on it. He's not going to release it at this point because it's an active investigation, multiple investigations. But he did say that if the FBI didn't do this in a timely manner, that he was going to blow the lid off of it and release the information. So it'll be interesting to see how explosive or not that may be.
Yeah.
So this guy here, I don't know if you know of him. He's one of the people I follow on X. He's got quite a following, Cynical Publius. He says, okay, I'm pretty sure I was on the early on the Fort Bragg connection between Livelsberger and Jabbar. So I am a fine one to complain, but just to tamp down the fire on this issue a wee bit, Bragg, now Fort Liberty, is a really big post. It's basically a small city. Livelsberger was Special Forces. Jabbar was 82nd. Those are totally separate communities on opposite sides of the post. Looking at Livelsberger's resume, it appears possible he was only at Bragg for the SFQ course, a highly intensive and demanding training course. And if that's the case, he likely never had a spare moment to meet Jabbar, let alone become close. Having said that, it is a peculiar coincidence, and I just wanted to add some information. So it's good that he did that. But correct me if I'm wrong. You were at the 82nd at one point in time, were you not?
Yeah, I was at Bragg too, at the special ops course there, the PSYOP course I took at Fort Bragg, and also language training before I went back to Vietnam the second time as an advisor. So I've had 3 or 4 different tours at Fort Bragg. Know it well.
It's so safe to say that his assessment of it essentially being a small city is
correct,
accurate.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next piece here. So, General, since the last time that we had you on, we try to cover the high level, say the Cliff Notes view of whatever the main topic of the night is in 10, 15, 20 minutes. Then the people who are tight on time, they can leave. They can always go to our Patreon. There's a link in the description of all our videos, but patreon.com/survival dispatch, and download our daily sit rep, aka the brief for the episode, if they want to dive into it more and they have more time. But I'll play this short video here. This supposedly is the TV station in Colorado that were the first ones to identify that it was Livelsberger and that he was from Colorado Springs. Kind of a different name, General, but when I went looking for information on him, I found a whole bunch of people named Matthew Livelsberger across the country. So much more common than what I would have anticipated. But I'll just play this quick news broadcast here.
Multiple law enforcement sources confirmed to News 5 that a Colorado Springs man was the driver of the cyber truck that exploded in front of the Trump International Hotel this morning in Las Vegas. They say 37-year-old Matthew Livelsberger died inside the vehicle. El Paso County records show that Livelsberger has several addresses in our area, and they're now the focus of a federal investigation. FBI agents are at one of his addresses on the east side of the city. That's where we find News 5's Maggie Bryan, who's been there for hours. Maggie, what are you seeing?
Megan, this is about all we can see of this scene right now. I'll step out of the way. You can see some of those flashing lights behind me. Those are coming from a few law enforcement vehicles blocking off the entrance to this townhome complex. Now, this is near Stetson Hills Boulevard and Mark Shuffle Road on the east side of Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs police confirmed to us that FBI agents are here investigating this home. We have learned that Livelsberger is connected to this townhome. Senior law enforcement officials say he lived in Colorado Springs and was the driver of the cyber truck. Our team has seen agents out here since about 7:30 this evening. We've also been back and forth to the Stetson Hills Police substation about 3 miles down the road, where we've seen a few armored vehicles in the parking lot there. We'll be out here talking with law enforcement and trying to get any more information we can tonight. For now, in Colorado Springs, I'm Maggie Bryan, News 5.
So that was at 10 p.m. Mountain time last night, I believe. So a little bit more information came out today and multiple sources. We scan everything, General, from the far left to the far right and everything in between, and try to discern what seems to be the most accurate or believable or truthful. Interesting picture here of the cyber truck having blown up. And I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but there's a number of videos online where they show people shooting at these trucks with 9mm, and they don't penetrate the skin of the vehicle. And then it sounds like when this blew up, which wasn't super high grade explosives or anything, but it essentially was driven up as opposed to horizontally. And thankfully that's the case and didn't end up killing anybody other than the driver. But I've got a whole bunch of stuff pulled up, but let's tackle it right away. So today the FBI revealed that Livelsberger his body was burned beyond recognition. There was a gunshot wound to his head, that he died before the explosion, and yet they used a paper army ID to identify him. That seems rather strange for somebody who's a Green Beret, that they used fireworks, gas cans, and that he killed himself before he detonated it, but the body's not identifiable, but his ID was there. What do you make of that, General?
Well, that's awful suspect. I mean, put yourself in the position, you're in the front there, you're behind the wheel, you've driven it in. Now you got to say, well, I'm going to kill myself, but I'm going to explode what's in the trunk of the Tesla truck. And that could just be a simple igniter, which ignites a fire that ignites some dynamite sticks or C4, whatever may be back there. That's easy to do. But it doesn't seem that a special forces guy is going to shoot himself at the same time, hit a button to explode the back of that truck and it burns. I mean, it's just too bizarre, Chris, for me. There's got to be something else going on there.
So there's been quite a few reports as well today, General, that him and his, I believe, ex-wife, there's been some conflicting reports on whether or not he was still married or not. There's reports that they had a baby 7 months ago, but either way, it appears that she was a hardcore Obama fan, anti-Trumper, And so initially they were trying to paint this Livelsberger in the same light that he was anti-Trump, but now he's got family members coming forward saying that he was a strong supporter of Trump. So now it doesn't square even more. Why would a Trump supporter blow up a Tesla Cybertruck in front of a Trump hotel?
You couldn't write this in Hollywood, for God's sakes. I mean, why we should get a Tesla truck, fill it with explosives, whatever he had in there, dynamite, fireworks, who knows, anything that would ignite, and then pull in, then pull back out and come back, 40, 45 minutes later, shoot himself, ignite it. I mean, this is such an amateur operation. What are you trying to prove by this? It's not very well thought out. I mean, it's what's he going to be accomplished? What's the objective? You can see the crazy guy in Bourbon Street in New Orleans. Yeah, I'm going to take the truck and run down the middle of this crowd. And I'm going to bypass the barriers and go on the sidewalk and hit as many people. I mean, he had that planned out. There's no doubt about that, the guy in New Orleans. But the disconnect is with Las Vegas. Even though there's some connections there with Fort Bragg and the Army and so on. But these things they're just so bizarre right now. And it doesn't show that there's any coordinated, sophisticated plan to ignite America with different terrorist type attacks, kill as many people as they can. So I mean, it is kabuki theater to me. It's puzzling. So the FBI, solve this problem. Get your people out there. Use military intelligence. We need to use our military more, Chris. We're not using them enough. And we have some great capabilities in the military. And it's not that we have to create martial law now. We're not at that point yet. It depends on what happens in the inauguration. There's a lot of threats, as you've mentioned earlier, regarding what's going to lead up to the inauguration here in 16, 17 days. And I don't think they ought to have the inauguration as planned. I think they ought to do a simple ceremony in front of the White House and make that it. That's it. Done. Trump's president.
I agree, but there was an announcement this afternoon that he's planning on doing a outdoor public rally in DC on the 19th, the day before he's inaugurated. And Ghostwalker Airsoft Tech is one of our regular followers, and I agree with him. That's because they did write it in Hollywood. Somebody wrote a pretty crazy script here for sure. Short video, 14 seconds long, shows the Cybertruck explosion.
That's a pretty good explosion.
Yeah, the view from inside the hotel, the videos from inside the hotel, I should say, have audio on them, and you can actually hear the fireworks going off, pardon me. But this is, I believe, in reverse chronological order here on this Newsweek one, and I think this jumped the gun, possibly, or Donald Trump.
It jumped the gun. There's no doubt about that. There was no indication that it was a cross-border operation at all, since they, excuse me, were American citizens and already in the United States.
Yeah, 100%. So here's another post that shows that the number of times that Routh was at Fort Bragg was actually 147 times, not 100 times, and that he stayed overnight on 29 occasions. So we don't have anything super concrete showing Ryan Routh tied to Livelsberger and Jabbar, but it's, again, we've got coincidence after coincidence happening here, and I can't say that I'm the biggest believer in coincidences. So here's his Livelsberger's, I don't know if it's his wife or ex-wife. Again, there's been different reports on it, but there's all kinds of people in Kabul that follow her, and lots of sympathetic posts with regards to the Taliban. And I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if there's anything to make of it, really.
Is she an Afghan, you say? His wife is Afghani?
No, she's not.
No.
She's a white girl from Colorado, hardcore
Oh, okay.
anti-Trumper, but she's friends online, at least on Facebook, with a bunch of people in Kabul, Afghanistan. Again, there's nothing super concrete there, but again, there's people who are saying that this Livelsberger was like her, an anti-Trumper. Now he's got family members saying the other thing. But moving on a little bit further, so Livelsberger, and I'm pretty sure I have basically a list of all his skills in the Green Beret world that are coming up here. But apparently he had pretty extensive training and background into programming drones. And without going too deep down that rabbit hole, we talk frequently with regards to this changing dynamic of, this fifth generation warfare, utilizing drones and the low barrier to entry and how much damage can be done so quickly. It's just another interesting angle of his skill set. So we've got a video here from the police in Vegas. It's 22 seconds long. I'll just play it quickly, but police also stated that they have not been able to positively identify the driver's body as it's too badly charred, as they also found multiple firearms in the truck. And we've got a picture of his paper ID coming up as well. It looks like somebody warmed it up with a Bic lighter, if you ask me.
Now, further complicating this identification of this individual, we also discovered through the coroner's office that the individual had sustained a gunshot wound to the head prior to the detonation of the vehicle. One of the handguns was found at his feet inside of the vehicle.
So, General, that brings up a whole bunch of questions, by the way. So was the detonator on a timer? I'm just throwing these questions out there. Was the detonator on a timer and he purposely didn't want to be burned or blown up, and that's why he committed suicide? Or was there somebody else involved in this who had a remote that set the detonator off? I mean, there's all more unanswered questions there are answered. It's a pretty crazy situation. So actually, here's a list of his appointments inside the Army. So remote and autonomous systems manager, special forces operations manager, with all kinds of sub skills under that, special forces intelligence and operations specialist, which is in your world, communications specialist. He was pretty accomplished, and he was still active duty 19 years and 1 month in. So, and if I read his background properly, I want to say that he was just upgraded to an E8 potentially. I don't know if
Why would he kill himself, though? What would be the motive to kill yourself?
That's the $1 million question. I mean,
yeah, I mean, you're not an Islamic, where you're going to blow yourself up and for Allah, it's not that kind of a situation.
Are you suggesting he's not getting 72 virgin goats when he goes?
Yeah, no, he's foregone that. He's foregone that. That's not going to happen. Yeah, but I mean that's bizarre. I mean, I hopefully have they positively identified the body though?
No, that's the problem. They're saying that it was burned beyond recognition, so they're going off his
Maybe
paper
it's
ID.
not him.
Yeah, entirely possible. But essentially, we're at the end of our opening for those people who are tight on time, and I'll just do a super quick recap. Basically, we've got the New Orleans terrorist and the Las Vegas guy who blew the Tesla up, and Ryan Routh, the second Trump assassin or attempted assassin, have all been at Fort Bragg, it appears, multiple times at the same time. You've got the New Orleans terrorist and you've got the guy in Vegas have communicated. Their phones have communicated with each other. They both use the same car rental application, which is kind of like Airbnb for renting vehicles. And so there's a number of things that kind of on the surface appears to connect them. And there's a lot of people on X right now, by the way, who are saying that they're joined at the hip. And I don't think we have enough intelligence to make that statement. And a lot of that is based on the fact that they're telling us who he is based on a charred paper ID that was in the truck, but he was burned beyond recognition, that they can't figure out who he was. I mean, just strikes me as nonsense. But
Yeah, you got to go back, Chris, to motives. What were the motives for these people? You have to examine that if you can find that out.
yeah,
Everything has a motive, like in a situation like that. What's the motive?
Agreed. There has to be some level of intention, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so for those people who are tight on time, that's basically what we know as far as these three individuals potentially being connected. You can go to patreon.com/survival dispatch, sign up for free, get the sit rep and the brief for free if you're tight on time, and then digest it under your own time. But now we're going to move into the balance of chapter 1, which is a deeper dive into what we've covered already. And the first thing I want to do is just issue a correction. So this was an ISIS flag on the back of the truck in New Orleans. And we looked at a bunch of video yesterday, General, where it didn't appear that the flag was on the truck. And I've got some screenshots showing it where it looks like there is no flag. But then when you go through the video a little bit, all of a sudden you can see it with some contrast. But the FBI's report, and still today it hasn't changed, says that the ISIS flag was in the cab of the truck with the driver. But at the end of the day, I was able to verify by going through screenshots. So there was a law enforcement officer here on this corner where my cursor is, where he did a quick 90-degree turnaround and ran over a bunch of people. Can't show that video on some of the platforms that we're broadcasting to tonight, or we'll get a strike for gratuitous violence. But this black mark right here, and it's not easy to see, but that black mark is the flag. Yeah. And, so there were people who'd made suggestions that if the flag was on the truck, why did the FBI put zip ties, snap ties to, obfuscate what it was? But they didn't. It was like that ahead of time. So I just wanted to make sure that we got this correction out there. But check this out. Here's a millisecond later in the video, and you can't see the flag. And you can't see the flag because the quality of the video is not fantastic.
Yeah.
And the lighting and the contrast and all of those sorts of things. So before we get into more specifics on these two events, you did a missive today on the meaning of Islam, and I put it in the brief for tonight. And if you could give our audience your thoughts on that, that would be fantastic, General.
Well, I'll try to do that. Let me see if I can call that up. So
no problem at all. While you're doing that, I was just going to take advantage of it to pull up the next ream of things, but I'll try to get something up here while you're doing that. So this one here, while you're looking for that, is a really crazy post that was later today. We have a major problem. Matthew Livelsberger, aka Matt Berg, changed his signal safety number just before the explosion, and then his photo and safety number changed after the explosion. So anybody who uses the Signal messaging app, that the safety number is something where you have to actually, manually go through it. It's not something that could happen arbitrarily on its own, including changing the person's picture. So this is really suspect and makes me wonder, what were there additional people involved in this? And again, all we can do is kind of speculate on that at this point in time. Here's a post from Juanita Broderick. She's on top of things. She's one of my favorite people to follow, but holy crap, he was a Ukraine soldier recruiter, like the second Trump would-be assassin. Are Trump assassination attempts connected to these acts of terrorism? And there's actually quite a few screenshots like this off of social media. Understand that his LinkedIn is down. I'm not sure if his Facebook is down, but there's a lot of coverage in there with regards to him connecting ex-military here with private contracting businesses in the Ukraine. And when you get to the brief up that you wrote today, General, just let me know and I'll stop and I'll turn it over to you.
Well, what we tried to do is publish something to put in perspective what it perhaps could lead to, or what was the background of these people. And in the article, we do call it's a terrorist attack. There's no doubt about it. Except Las Vegas is more of a blow up, an explosion, and it killed one people. It doesn't look like it was intended to kill any masses of people. And so as President-elect Trump said, this is pure evil. Here we're entering a new year with hopes for another economic turnaround, build America back again, make America great in all respects, in the economy and energy and the way we do business in our justice system. But one must understand, to be a successful terrorist, one must be ready, willing, and able to die for the cause. Okay, we make that very clear. In World War II, the Japanese did it as a matter of a religious necessity called Bushido, the way of the warrior. Bushido is a moral code that governs behavior, lifestyle, and attitudes. The values of Bushido included loyalty, honor, respect, courage, and honesty, but not wanton warrior. Now, that's what's different today. It sounds like, well, anyhow, I won't go too much into the Japanese. I think you understand where they were coming from versus jihad. But Muslims, I should say radical Islamists, totally are taught from childhood that the Quran is the absolute word of God, as revealed by Allah to the Prophet Muhammad a couple thousand years ago. So it was written, and so it shall be. And that is the religious aspect of it. There have been new prophets, that's for sure. But the teaching of Islam has spread all over the world and created what we call terror across the world. We had terror before, but not so organized that it emanated out of Al-Qaeda in the Middle East and ISIS now and so on and so forth. So we wanted to make clear so people would understand what we're dealing with today. And we point out that Trump really in his first term saw the danger Islam posed on Western culture. And what he did is put the brakes on the flow of selected Muslims from certain countries to our nation. And it was not to exclude all Muslims, but to really focus on those that have been put through the training to become radical Islamists. And so, hold on a second. Let me.
No problem. So I see Jeff MD's join us. Jeff, how are you doing?
Let me just take that off. Sorry about that.
No problem at all, General.
So basically, what we're dealing with is this new generation of terrorism. But the target, of course, is Europe, and the target is the United States, and of course, Israel. And but now we have got to clean this up, Chris. Trump and his new people have got to clean up America. We've got to clean up the cities, clean up any of the nests that we find. We've got to take down the cartels, and we have to make sure we don't engage in unnecessary wars. We've got to focus on America now. They've dismantled, I say, these radical Democrats and these liberals have dedicated themselves to dismantling our country. And go back to George Soros, Obama, Biden, Kamala Harris, Mayorkas, all that crowd. Remember the guy named Brennan under Obama? Remember that character? And he's probably been running most of the intel operations for Obama and Biden for the last 4 years. Anyhow, there's so much going on, but we've got to clean up America. That's our duty, beginning right now, and to assist President Trump in doing that.
Yeah, I suspect that's going to take a number of years to accomplish that. General, I'm not sure if you've met Jeff MD or not, but he just joined us. He was CIA operative for 26 years and actually was at the CIA while John Brennan is there. And he's a big fan of John Brennan. He says he's the best director of the CIA they ever had.
Yeah.
Or the worst, one or the other. I can't remember which. No, he was pretty horrible.
Well, he's definitely an enemy of the state, as we said.
Absolutely.
Earlier, enemy of the state.
Yeah. So Jeff, we just went through some of the initial things that circumstantially at least connect three people: Ryan Routh, the second Trump assassin, Jabbar in New Orleans, and Livelsberger in Vegas. But I mentioned this earlier, General, with Senator Kennedy, and right. I'll just play a quick snippet here. Essentially what he's saying, though, is that they know a lot more than what's been released, but they can't release it because it's an active investigation. But if the FBI doesn't do this expeditiously, he's going to release the information.
Joining us now from New Orleans is Republican Louisiana Senator John Kennedy. Senator, thank you very much for taking some time out for us. We know that you're very busy talking with law enforcement on the ground. There are a lot of folks in this country tonight that are afraid of what's happening in New Orleans. And I know that you're trying to get answers tonight as police search for other potential suspects, possible co-conspirators tonight. By all accounts, with this new surveillance video we have now, with what we're learning from police, this sounds to be some sort of sleeper cell, a terrorist cell on U.S. soil. Is that what you're hearing?
Well, I should. There's a fine line between anger and grief, and I'm pretty much straddling that line right now. If you don't believe in objective evil, all you need to do is go walk about 30 or 40 yards that way. I'm here for two reasons. Number one, these are my people, and these are my people's guests. Number two, I don't want to hear from anybody in the federal government that they don't have the resources. Now, the White House, the FBI, Justice, Homeland Security are in charge now. We're cooperating with them. I want to give them a reasonable period of time. There's a lot of information out there. Some of it is actually true. I want to give them a reasonable period of time, but they need to saddle up and ride. We need to find out what happened here, and it's not going to be covered up. We're going to tell the American people exactly what happened. And that's why I'm down here.
Yeah.
We know a lot more than what's being reported, Aisha, but they are in the middle of an active investigation, and I don't want to do anything to screw it up.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to hear what comes out of that.
Yeah.
So here's the ID that I mentioned earlier, General and Jeff. So I don't know if you caught it or not, Jeff, but this Matthew Livelsberger, who supposedly shot himself in the head before the Tesla Cybertruck exploded, and then his body was burned beyond recognition, but his paper ID survived, and this is how they ID'd him. I mean, I suppose anything's possible, but
Well, I think they could also get it from the rental app. You know, whoever rented the car, they're going to be able to tell them. You know, because I think they're supposed to do, you know, minimal check on you, make sure you have a driver's license, things like that. It doesn't mean he's necessarily the guy in the car. And we were talking about this on the chat side before I came on, and he may have shot himself because he didn't want to burn to death. That's a horrible way to die. And I tell you, if I had a choice, I'd rather get shot in the head than burn to death. But also his wife, you know, they just had a baby. I don't know if you realize that.
7 months ago.
7 months ago, but there was pictures of her on Facebook or something like that with another guy. Like maybe she has left him. And if she has left him and taken the baby with him, you know, there's a lot of motivation to do some pretty wacky things in that case.
Mm-hmm.
So it may have been a big, you know, middle finger to his ex-wife as much as anything, if that turns out to be the case.
Right. Yeah. There's more questions.
Motive.
Yeah, there's more unanswered questions than answered questions, but there are some rather suspicious circumstances that tie these guys together. So I'll get through this as quickly as I can, especially for you, General, because I want to hear your input on somebody who has this type of background, Livelsberger, and going and killing himself. So there's a lot we do not know about Matthew Livelsberger, the alleged Vegas bomber, but here's what we do know. And there's a lot that does not add up. He recently made the E8 list for MSG in 2023 in an 18Z slot, which means he was a special forces soldier. And if he pinned, would have still been on active duty. This also means that he was well within his sergeant time. He was an 18E Special Forces Communications Sergeant and then went on to the Fox course to become an 18F Intelligence Sergeant before making the E8 list. He also apparently was Small Unmanned Aircraft Systems qualified, which implies he had training as a drone pilot. I'm submitted a FOIA request for his military records, but expect that to take some time. He rented the Cybertruck from Turo, the same company that the NOLA terrorist used. The back of the truck was full of mortar fireworks, gasoline canisters, and campfire fuel canisters, which are all combustible, but would not be ideal for an explosion to create maximum damage. Here's the crazy part. With the level of experience that he had, how does it make sense that he would rent a Cybertruck, which are known to be bulletproof, fill it with ineffective explosives that he would know would not actually damage much, if anything? The front windows of the building did not even break. The other crazy part, his wife, Sarah Livelsberger, has multiple anti-Trump posts on her social media from years and years ago. So if he was radicalized, if this all was an attempt to hurt people and destroy a Trump building, why would he go about it in such an incompetent and ineffective manner? Lots not adding up here. So being special forces yourself, General, give me your take on that piece of information as far as the lack of sophistication versus what this guy's qualifications were.
Well, more to what you've said here and what's been up on the screen. Again, it goes back to motivation. It certainly doesn't make sense that it was a planned terrorist attack against a population or against a mass of people to pull up a Cybertruck, shoot yourself, and then somehow it's ignited remotely, or you did it at the same time. Who knows, or whether that body is really his. But it appears more that it goes back to maybe a family situation with the wife. And if she did in fact leave him, or was leaving him, or had a boyfriend, guys go crazy. You know, they kill themselves so that they shoot themselves when they lose a wife or a girlfriend. So, I mean, maybe that's it. And there are some relations there with Fort Bragg, but it just doesn't make sense to me that this was a terrorist attack.
Yeah, fair enough.
And in Las Vegas, we know the one on Bourbon Street was, but not Las Vegas.
Right. So I added this to the brief for tonight simply because I think some people, maybe not just young people, but some people our age, have forgotten about this. Young people might not remember the previous Islamist car attack in the USA. In 2017, Sayfullo Saipov drove a truck into cyclists on a bike path in New York City, 8 dead. He had an ISIS flag in his car and entered the U.S. after winning a green card lottery, diversity immigrant visa program. So this has been going on for years, and it hasn't just been in Europe. It's been happening here as well. Yeah. So I'm going to try to get us through a handful of these posts as quick as I can before I get comments from both of you. This post here, the Cybertruck at Trump Hotel killer's name's Matthew Livelsberger. This is his wife, possibly ex-wife, Sarah, and her face. Don't go harassing her. This is on him alone. The next post that somebody put up here has some comments that she made with regards to Barack Obama and how much she loved him and hates Donald Trump. So with that out of the way, Livelsberger, let's pivot back to New Orleans. So this is pretty crazy. Inside terrorist Jabbar's squalid home, where sheep and goats roam his yard after financial ruin. So he lived in a trailer park in Harris County, which is Houston for anybody who knows South Texas. He lived blocks away from his mosque. And there are lots of reports of people who know him now that said he got pretty radicalized. He was in the reserve for more than a decade. He was deployed to Afghanistan, and he was essentially an IT specialist, although we showed some stuff last night that he was at Ernst & Young and Deloitte, some pretty high-end companies I've done some work with when I was with Sun, and you don't get hired by those companies unless you're a really, really smart guy. So long story short is this article, I'm not going to read it off because we're tight on time. People can get the brief for free and go through all of this. But this New York Post article, to be honest with you, probably encapsulates the bulk of the information of what we know as far as Jabbar is concerned. This is a more recent photo, by the way. That was 2020. Mm-hmm. And here's some of our guys from Harris County Sheriff's Department. We actually have some survival dispatch people who are in Harris County SO. And here's a crazy thing, Jeff. That's the pixelated picture. they took our thumbnail down last night, by the way, General, because for gratuitous violence because of a pixelated image.
Right.
It was the same image, but I pixelated it, not this one here. But anyway, YouTube, it's like kind of like the nanny state, just nanny tech, I guess. Here's a second article. I think the New York Post, to be quite honest with you, has done an exceptional job on reporting the New Orleans stuff. But in this one that's interesting, his brother specifically mentions that he was radicalized. So he was born and raised in South Texas in Beaumont, which is pretty close to the Louisiana state line. It's east of Houston. There's a little bit of overlap of information in this article as to the other one, but the most important part and why I wanted to bring it up was that his brother essentially confirmed that he was radicalized. So moving on to the next one, I have a question with regards to this, and I don't expect either of you to know the answer. I cannot play this whole video because he runs over a bunch of people and we'll get a strike. And we've got 2 strikes against our channel right now, one more before they clear every 90 days and our channel will be deleted. But here's my question after we watch just a bit of this. So that's him in the white truck right there. So the camera operator zoomed in on him driving the truck. And then when the light changes color, which is to the left of it, where the camera is right now, again, zooming in on the truck, and you can't see the flag on the back of the truck because the video's poor, but the flag is on the back of the truck there. Still following the track. There's the cops. I have to stop it here. He goes around that cop and smokes these people on the street here. But my question is this: who's taking the recording of him driving his truck? Does that not strike you guys as kind of suspicious? Like, did somebody just randomly took a video of him approaching the scene of the crime?
I think so, Jeff. Don't you? I think it's really suspicious.
It is. As the Mossad said, nothing is a coincidence. It is odd. Now, there may have been, who knows, there may have been something else happening on the street in the same general direction that they were actually paying attention to, and not this guy. But that's still a question that needs to be asked and answered. Maybe it's some 16-year-old kid out there videoing, who knows? But someone needs to ask those questions.
It just struck me as very suspect. That's all. So moving on to the next one, here's a piece of information that I have not seen a lot of people reporting on. New Orleans Airbnb fire may be connected to Bourbon Street attack. So he rented an Airbnb the night before the attack, and then the day after the attack, it burned down. So again, the plot thickens, right? What are the chances of this guy renting an Airbnb and mysteriously the next morning it burns down?
To me, it's more suspicious than videotaping the truck.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he could have set a timer on something and ignited in the Airbnb to cover up. That's probably what happened.
Yeah, he may have made his bombs there, and he may have thought that he was going to get through this. The fact that he had IEDs in the vehicle, and they were designed to be remotely detonated, and he had the detonator in the cab. I have a feeling he was planning to go down, run over a bunch of people, kill a bunch of people, get out of the van or out of the truck, get away, at least temporarily, so we have the guns and stuff. And then when people gather around the truck, you set it off. That's an old school terrorist attack. You do one attack, and then you have another bomb for when the first responders and everybody shows up, and you kill even more people that way. But he got shot first. The New Orleans police got to him before he could get away.
So it sounds like that's exactly the case, Jeff, because the FBI bomb squad detonated 2 IEDs that they claim he planted at 2 Catholic churches that were meant to go off during mass the following day. So, again, the plot thickens more and more, but there's another update from today, though. Last night when they were discussing the IEDs, they said that they were looking for 4 or 5 other persons of interest. Today, they changed their story and said this was 100% a lone wolf attack. So they've pivoted a complete 180 degrees. Now, this next one here is at his home in Harris County. And if you zoom in on this guy, I'll make it full screen in a second. He looks like he's got the Muslim beard and whatnot. This was drone footage taken when the Harris County SO went to the property. And again, if you look closely, you'll see he's got a very, ISIS inspired type of beard.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I don't know if that's his brother. They didn't announce who this particular individual was. All we've got is just this little snippet of the footage from the drone. So moving on to the next one, this is specifically well, you know what? Actually, since you were on the PSYOP side as well, General, I guess both of you, never forget that when WikiLeaks released over 500,000 U.S. diplomatic cables going back to 1979, Julian Assange came to one chilling conclusion. The CIA created ISIS. You first, General, and then Jeff, I want to hear your input as well.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm one of the few guys that ISIS has put a hit out on. They did that when I went into Syria in 2012 and 2014. They put a hit out on me. So with the CIA, I even invited the CIA to go into Aleppo with me, and they wouldn't do it. Their station chief out of Istanbul, but that was on YouTube years ago. I don't know. I mean, I can never make a connection between ISIS and the CIA when basically they all came together there in latter part of 2013 and 2014. And when they took over Mosul and the whole thing started of the Islamic State. So I don't know. I'm not even sure it's critical at this time. The fact of it is they still exist, and the CIA still exists. And we're going to have to see what happens after January 20th. But I don't know. There's just a lot of speculation out there, Chris. I don't know.
100%. There's certainly some, incriminating things, but there's lots of stuff that, like you said, is very suspect. Jeff, your thoughts on Julian Assange's allegation?
Yeah, a lot of this has been going around for years. And a lot of this starts back in the 80s when we were funding the resistance to the Soviets in Afghanistan. And so a lot of those guys that we were giving arms and money and training to go kill Russians, when the Russians left, they started killing other people. Osama bin Laden was over there. You have the Haqqani network, all those people. When they were fighting the Russians, they were on our side because they were fighting the Russians. Right. Well, and when the Russians left, they became what we would, determine to be terrorist groups because they were trying to take over the country, and the Taliban actually did. And a lot of those Taliban leaders fought alongside of our allies against the Russians. So in that, those people later morphed into various terrorist organizations. Could you say with a stretch that they were, quote unquote, created by the CIA? Well, at one point, those individuals were eating meals paid for by the CIA back in the 80s.
Mujahideen.
Yeah, the Mujahideen. Those were our guys.
Those were our guys, yeah.
And then a lot of them later turned out to be terrorists.
Fair enough.
Chris, I've got to run. I've got another thing coming up here, but if that's okay.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time, General, and we'll catch up again soon.
We can reconvene another time. See what happens.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Nice seeing you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, nice seeing you too, General.
Okay.
So, Jeff, this is a great comment from Robert Dole. The video of the truck being zoomed in on is clearly someone filming a computer screen showing the video, likely a cop or traffic employee with access to traffic camera footage. That's plausible.
Amen.
Yeah, that's really plausible. And an astute observation on Robert's part for sure. Like I always say, man, we've got the smartest audience. Jeff, remember when we were asking people if they felt they could pass the U.S. citizenship test?
Yeah.
And I told you a bunch of people went and did it. I actually just saw another update on that story a couple days ago where I want to say that when we broadcast that episode, they were saying 50% of Americans couldn't pass it. The latest one that I saw said only 31% of Americans could pass it, not being up to speed on their civics, but everybody who wrote to me from our audience passed it with flying colors. So when we say our audience is smart, our audience is smart.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting, very short post from Stephen Miller. Islamist terrorism is an import. It is not homegrown. It did not exist here before migration brought it here. And
that's absolutely true.
Yeah, and he's made that comment because the legacy media keeps saying how, this Jabal is a homegrown terrorist. And obviously it's external influences that have come into play. I don't like to rip off other people's podcasts, and I respect Sean Ryan, but there's a 54-second clip here where he's got somebody, you can only see him from behind, that's somehow tied to the Taliban. Some interesting comments made in this video.
There's no difference between Taliban and Al-Qaeda. Their ideology is identical. They're two sides of the same coin. They both want the same thing.
This message I deliver to you, the people of America.
When they look at America, they don't see the United States of America.
We will not stop fighting. We will not put down our weapons until we reach your lands.
They see the Islamic States North America province, the Islamic States Latin American province, the Islamic States European province.
Until we put the black flag on top of the White House.
Just like Afghanistan to them is the Islamic States Khorasan province, ISKP, what you call them.
Until we put the black flag on top of the White House. And we will defeat you, bi'idhnillah.
We are coming and will destroy you.
So, Jeff, get your comments, just because, you were in Afghanistan while you were in the CIA, and I have no reason to doubt that guy either, but his assertion that these terrorist groups are essentially the same thing, does that hold true?
Well, Taliban and ISIS and Al-Qaeda, they're all basically the same.
Okay.
Taliban is more, there's a lot of ethnic Pashtus in that, whereas Al-Qaeda, traditional Al-Qaeda, was more ethnic Arabs.
Okay.
But they believe the same thing. They're Sunni Muslims. They believe in a strict interpretation of the Quran. And if you don't believe in the Quran, it's okay to kill you. And in fact, you have a duty to kill them, the infidels.
Very interesting. So next one here from MJ Truth Ultra. This guy is really spot on with his stuff on X. So update: New Orleans attack. This is nuts. A mosque near the suspect's home, so Jabbar's home in Houston, Texas, directs its members not to speak to authorities. They tell their members to refer to CARE National, the largest civil rights organization for Muslims in the U.S. Send them all back. So this is a message that was sent out to all the members of that mosque. I'm not even going to try and pronounce those first couple words. I'm sure many of you have heard about the tragic events that took place in New Orleans this morning that are now being classified as an act of terror by the FBI. I want to emphasize the importance of everyone to stay very vigilant and aware of your surroundings. The safety of our community is the most important thing. If anyone is contacted by the media, it is very important that you do not respond. If approached by the FBI and a response is necessary, please refer to CARE and ISGH. Not sure what ISGH is. It is crucial that we stay united at this time as we condemn these terrible acts. Please be safe. So sorry, what does ISGH stand for, Jeff?
I think it's the Islamic Society of Greater Houston.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think. Don't quote me on that. But CARE is the Council of Arab American Islamic Relations.
Right.
They're terrorist sympathizers from the get-go.
100
pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah, anti-Israel.
Yeah, 100%. I'm 55, fixing to be 56 here in a few weeks. In my entire life, I cannot recall anything like this happening. I don't recall it happening after 9/11. I don't recall this happening after the attack on the Trade Center in the early 90s. What are your thoughts on that? Basically saying, like, if they're trying to enlist the help of these outside organizations, what are they hiding?
It kind of goes both ways. I could see them saying, okay, if we had nothing to do with this, we don't want to get blamed for it. Okay, and I can see that. And, the listeners need to understand that what we're talking about here is fringe within Islam. Most Muslims are good folks. I have known tons of them. I have worked with a bunch of them, and they're decent people. I mean, there's a higher percentage, I think, of bad actors in the Islamic world, because you've got nation states that, rather than condemning their actions and behavior, either openly support them or fund them, or at the very least turn a blind eye. You know, look at Qatar right now. You know, Qatar has been supporting Hamas for years. The Hamas leadership lived in Qatar because they didn't want to live in Gaza, so they had billions of dollars and they lived in luxury apartments in high-rise buildings in Qatar. Well, if Qatar thought of them as terrorists, they wouldn't allow that crap, but they don't. They look at them as, okay, yeah, they're just fellow Arabs, fellow Muslims. They just take a little harder stand about things than we do.
Fair
but
enough.
They don't condemn them.
We've got S2 just joined us as well. Good evening, S2. Looks like you're on mute. Are you with us, S2? We cannot hear you. I'll move on here while we're waiting for you to get your audio in order. So, Jeff, I don't know how much information you've got on this lady. So she's the police superintendent in New Orleans. She was previously fired by the Oakland PD. She's under investigation for running over two pedestrians not too long ago. She is a trainer for DEI for the FBI and other agencies. Check this out. I'm going to play this video, but New Orleans police superintendent says she had no clue that New Orleans had sidewalk barriers to defend against terror attacks, which are now being used today. What a total embarrassment. Reporters seemed shocked when Ann Patrick bizarrely admitted that she was unaware of sidewalk barriers, something that would have likely saved lives if they had been installed on New Year's. According to video footage, the New Orleans terror attack suspect appeared to get around police barricades by driving on the sidewalk.
What you see behind us is what we call hardening the target. So we have brought in heavy trucks. You will see when you go down Bourbon, you will see yellow, what we call archers, and they're along the sidewalk. And that would be to be preventive. If someone had, or if this particular terrorist went around up on the sidewalk, that's what that would do. Okay, it would slow that down for anyone who thought that they could breach our targets. And so those are some of the main differences we are done in the quarter. Also, you are going to see an incredibly large presence of police. And we are, though, confident, but we want our community to feel confident and know they are confidently safe. And that's what we're going to do. So right now, I can declare to you that the Bourbon Street is open.
I got to stop that there. We'll get smoked by YouTube again.
She's an idiot.
She is the very epitome of a DEI hire.
Yeah,
totally unqualified.
All you got to do is stop people from driving on sidewalks. If you get those big round concrete planters that are about 3 or 4 feet across,
yeah,
you fill them full of dirt and you plant a tree in it and call it public works. But nothing's going to drive through them because they weigh about 3 tons.
Right.
You know, I mean, this isn't rocket science. I mean, for Christ's sakes, 9/11 was 23 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole idea of dragon's teeth and Jersey barriers and serpentines so vehicles have to slow down to get through them. This is ancient. This is old technology. And that she's just now discovering it. She's an idiot.
It's bad. Like it's really, really bad. So
guns shoot bullets. Who knew?
Well, yeah. Apparently, right? So anyway, this is the post that I mentioned, and there's more that back this up, that at 6 a.m. in New Orleans, officers found an explosive device near the cathedral in the French Quarter. They actually discovered 2 devices and safely detonated both of them. So as I mentioned earlier, he was planning on targeting Catholics. So it always seems they want to hit the Catholics, right? So this next one here, warning, it's going to happen again. This is Manhattan tonight, which was last night, chanting globalize the Intifada hours after we all got to see what globalizing the Intifada looks like in New Orleans and likely Las Vegas. We need some serious deportations. All I've got to say to that is this is not going to end well at all.
You're right. We need mass deport. Any of those people in that crowd that are not U.S. citizens, they need to just get the hell out.
100%.
Intifada is violence. That's all it is.
100%. S2, you got your audio back?
Yeah, I think I'm good now.
Right on. Glad you could join us. We're almost at the end of chapter 1 here, but we got lots of interesting stuff coming up in chapter 2 as well. And so speaking of New York, actually, you know what? Let's just pause there because I want to ask you guys a question before we move on, because that actually takes us into chapter 2. So Donald Trump's team announced that he's going to hold an outdoor rally in DC on the 19th, the day before the inauguration, which leads me to believe that he's probably going to do the inauguration outdoors per usual. The general and I discussed this earlier. We were both in agreement that that's probably not the safest or best decision. But moving on from that, well, actually, when you both answer these questions, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But the next one would also be, what are your thoughts on a flurry of disruption before and after Trump's inauguration to basically keep them in reactive mode, the Trump admin, in reactive mode, whether it be an increase in cartel violent crime, terrorist attacks, civil unrest, pandemics, war, blah, 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 all these things. Jeff, you first, and then S2.
Well, I can see the anarchists doing it, and I can see the Muslims doing it, the pro-Hamas crowd. I don't see the cartels doing it because the cartels are a business, and the last thing they want to do is paint an even bigger bullseye on their foreheads that glows in the dark.
Fair enough.
Their whole thing is they want to fly under the radar. They don't want to be on the radar. These other groups are looking to wreak havoc. That's their purpose in life. Cartels' purpose, make money. These other groups just cause trouble. So yeah, I can see them doing it. But I tell you what, as far as the Hamas crowd goes, they'd be smart to take a page from the cartels, because the last thing they want to do is paint a big bullseye on their forehead for Tom Homan and ICE. And he says, we're gonna get rid of the violent criminals first, and so we're gonna start with you guys because you're rioters. And rioting is violent. So bye-bye.
That's solid reasoning. S2, your thoughts on Trump's inauguration, rally the day before outdoors, and what's going to happen as far as before and after the inauguration?
Well, if I had to say that, it sounds like that's a decoy plan to me. Could be used to draw out whoever's there. And I mean, it's been long known that politicians use body doubles. So it very well could be that they've got a body double lined up for Trump.
Man, who would volunteer for that job after the way things have gone this year? That'd have to be an awfully large paycheck to assume that level of risk.
I'm going back because I'm going to tell you what, this whole thing has got the Q crowd really stirred up again. And they're coming up with some really pretty interesting stuff when we're talking about dates and events that are happening.
Okay.
One of the things they're coming up with is fireworks, and they're referring back to the post that Elon posted again with the burned up Tesla truck.
Yep.
And another thing they're saying in that post, I forget the date, but the other thing they're saying in that post is expect fireworks, and that POTUS is fully insulated.
Interesting.
So it's kind of strange how some of this stuff is starting to converge. But I mean, they're right on with dates and times.
So actually, before we've got a short message from Sawyer, and then we'll pivot to chapter 2. But before then, just because you weren't able to join us earlier, we were discussing these circumstantial connections between Ryan Routh, the guy in New Orleans and the guy in Vegas. And it looks like the guy in Vegas, New Orleans, have been in recent contact with each other. There's phone records showing that. You've got all three of them have spent a significant amount of time in recent years at Fort Bragg. You've got the guy in Vegas and Ryan Routh, both were very active in recruiting people to basically be private contractors in the Ukraine. And there's all these crazy circumstantial things, but the one thing that I'd like you to comment on, then you can take it whatever direction you want to go. What do you make of Livelsberger supposedly shooting himself in the head before the Cybertruck was, blowing up, and that the body was burned beyond recognition, but they were able to verify his identity because of his military ID, which was in the car and looked like somebody took a Bic lighter to it? Like,
that dude is out working at Skunk Works right now. And this was clearly an attempt to cover up evidence of some sort for whatever reason. And there's a whole lot that I can add about this. I've been burning up the Signal chat today with this stuff all day.
I saw that while I was in between doing stuff. We've got you here. Let's hear what your thoughts are.
Well, let me pull this document up here. So, an interesting thing about Musk. So, if we look at where this happened obviously in Las Vegas. So, it suggests military government involvement, connections between the drivers and the military, as well as the involvement of government officials. Suggest possible military or government involvement. And then the question remains, how would the government be involved, specifically the Las Vegas event? And the government ties are this: Tesla's government contracts. Tesla has received significant government contracts, including a $7.5 billion contract with the U.S. Department of Energy to build a battery factory in Nevada. Next one, Musk's relationship with the government. Musk has a close relationship with the government, having served on the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, receiving government subsidies. The Nevada government involvement. Tesla factory in Nevada was built with significant government incentives. We also look at the Trump Hotel, who the property is actually owned by a company called TIC Las Vegas LLC. The company owns that property. The Nevada Gaming Commission, TIC Las Vegas LLC, is licensed by the Nevada Gaming Commission. But I'll skip down to the United States government involvement, where the U.S. Department of Interior has a lease agreement with the U.S. Department of the Interior, which manages the land on which the hotel is located. And there's some government officials there. So we look at military involvement. Autonomous vehicle testing. The Tesla Cybertruck was involved in the explosion, was part of a military-funded autonomous vehicle testing program. U.S. Army Research Laboratory was involved in the development of the autonomous vehicle technology used in the Tesla Cybertruck. DARPA's military research agency funded the development of the autonomous vehicle technology using the Tesla truck. And then we look at the Nevada test site. The explosion occurred near the Nevada test site, a military testing facility that's been used for a variety of military experiments, including autonomous vehicle testing. So, and we have some key military officials that are involved with this. And gee, guess who's at the top of the list? General Mark Milley, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We have Dr. Lisa Porter, who was the director of DARPA, was involved in the development of the autonomous vehicle technology. And Colonel John Bradley, U.S. Army officer, been involved in the same. So we have extensive government involvement here. And we can even take this back to the drones, if you like. In New Orleans, drones were spotted flying over the scene of the New Orleans attack, and some reports suggest that they may have been used to capture footage of the incident. In Las Vegas, drones were also spotted flying over the scene of the Las Vegas explosion. Autonomous drones, some reports are suggesting that autonomous drones have been involved in both incidences, potentially as part of a larger surveillance or intelligence gathering operation. Military-grade drones, some reports are suggesting that military-grade drones have been involved in both incidences. And we have key players in that field as well. We have Northrop Grumman, We have Lockheed Martin, and we have a company called Drone Shield that specializes in drone detection and tracking technology, has been involved in both incidences and has provided drone-related services to the United States military.
Very interesting. I mean, what else is interesting, of course, is Henderson, Nevada, not too far from Las Vegas. That's like the world epicenter of military development, research and development, all that kind of stuff. So
Exactly. So, like I said, I think this guy's probably out there working at Skunk Works, having a coffee right now, laughing while everybody's chasing their tails, working on drones.
absolutely crazy. So, all right, we got a quick message from Sawyer Products, and we will be right back.
The Sawyer Mini is the most versatile personal filtration system available. It's a perfect solution for backpacking, hiking, hunting, fishing, scouting, international travel, and emergency preparedness. At a mere 2 ounces, the Mini fits in the palm of your hand and can filter up to 100,000 gallons of water from any freshwater lake, river, or stream. The Sawyer Mini has a 0.1 micron absolute pore size. It was tested to 10 million parts of bacteria and 1 million parts of protozoa without a single breakthrough. This is the highest level filters can be tested to, so we're confident these are the highest rates of filtration available.
All right. So before we dive into chapter 2, which is typically anywhere from say 12 to 20 headlines from the top of the news cycle, I had not heard of this. So Lining 875. So we had a guy arrested in Idaho for trying to plant an IED on a train. Did you guys hear that? I have not heard of that. I've been up since 3:30 a.m. this morning working, and I'm surprised it didn't come across it. Have either of you seen the news on that?
I vaguely remember hearing about it, but I was too busy digging into the other stuff.
Fair enough. Well, we'll definitely have to look into it later on. Appreciate the heads up on that. All right, so let's start jumping into our headlines on chapter 2. So this was the mass shooting last night in New York City. At least 11 people have been shot in Queens. I want to say that number's 13 dead now, if memory serves me correctly. Short video. I'll just play a little bit of it for context.
I pay too much money and meant to be outside fighting for my rights. That's a fact. Pray everyone survives.
So clearly, this is after the shooting had taken place.
Yeah, everybody up.
And we're not going to hear gunshots and see what's going on. What I do know, what I've been, gathered from other people close to this place has regular altercations, and it's not really unexpected, and it's not terrorist related. Jeff, you first, and then S2 if you have any comments.
Yeah, we were talking about this on the Signal chat earlier, and I just said in Chicago they just call this a quiet night. I think it's just thugs being thugs.
Fair enough. S2?
Same.
Yeah, okay. Good to know. Like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of time to look into that one. The next one up here, I'm going to do some shameless plugs for my good friend Todd Callender, friends with y'all as well. So I don't know who Ashley Hayes is, but so Elon changed his name to Kekius. He's changed back since then, but for a number of days he had it as Kekius, which is a demonic god of darkness. He's also wearing Roman garb in his avatar because he's anticipating the revived Roman Empire, aka beast system. So the reason I threw this in here is that our regular followers know that I've been suspended 3 times this year on X, and all 3 times it was because I quoted the maximum penalty for treason that I felt needs to be applied to a significant number of the people in this installed administration. And so you probably recall me also saying that I did not have 100% faith that Elon Musk had restored 100% free speech on his platform. I'll give him credit where credit's due. He's moved the needle for sure, and he's probably influenced the election in a positive way by getting the truth out on a number of topics. But I can't say that I honestly trust him not to do censorship. And then all of a sudden we have an H-1B visa, kerfuffle over the past week, and a number of very high profile conservative influencers ended up losing their blue check mark, so their verified identity. When you lose your verified identity, You lose the ability to make posts longer than 140 characters. You lose the ability to be monetized. You lose the ability to sell subscriptions to your subscribers. You get much less coverage. And you know what? The H-1B visa stuff, we covered it last week. It's a mess. It has been abused to put Americans out of work and substitute foreigners of lesser skills. And then the remaining Americans on the workforce, their workload doubles because now they have to come behind the foreigners, the H-1Bs, not all of them, but a significant number of them. And keep in mind, I come from high tech, so this is in my wheelhouse. And basically the delta between what we pay Americans versus what you can pay an H-1B visa is so significant that you can accept more screw ups and you can accept somebody having to come behind and clean it up because you're saving so much money. Elon Musk over this, anybody who didn't agree with him, he went after them last week and did all the things that I've already mentioned. So how does this relate to my friend Todd Callender? For those people who don't know Todd is the very notorious federal level attorney who sued Lloyd Austin and the DOD over the mRNA injections being forced on 400,000 troops who did not want to take it. There were 51 attorneys. Todd was the lead attorney. They took it all the way to SCOTUS. He was the lead attorney because he's been in front of the Supreme Court previously numerous times. He's also the CEO of a global insurance company along the lines of Berkshire Hathaway, but he also owns the Clout Hub, CLOUTHUB.com social media platform. And Clout Hub is really the only large scale social media platform out there that can truly claim to be censorship free. The only things that you can't put on there is illegal activity and pornography. So what I want to give Todd a shameless plug for is that he's fixing to create an entirely new platform called Liberty Club. And it is absolutely cutting edge. And we will be speaking to all of the influencers who have been silenced on X and other platforms to bring them over to it. But Todd Callender, I'm not going to tell you where he lives, but he moved years ago because of the excessive number of death threats against him. Why does he get death threats? Because he loves taking on the government and standing up for the small guy. And this is a pretty big development in the social media space, because now I have even less faith in Elon Musk restoring free speech, because if you disagree with him, he'll, smoke you. Do either one of you want to make a comment on Elon Musk's?
Yeah, I can make this comment. This person is full of shit. Kekius Maximus is a meme coin is a type of cryptocurrency.
Okay.
And it appears to be associated with the alt-right and the phrase kek, which the folks in Peppy world know what that means. It's basically the equivalent of laugh out loud. So it's cryptocurrency. NFT is what it is. It's not the demonic god of darkness. So let's put that one. Let's put that one to bed.
Well, the other thing is kind of bullshit on this. He says he's also wearing Roman garb. Well, if you look at the avatar he used for that, it's Pepe the frog in Roman garb. It's not Musk in Roman garb.
Exactly.
So it's all about Pepe the frog. He probably did just to piss off the left.
He was trolling hard. He was trolling that one hard.
Yeah, that might be the case. Any thoughts on him censoring Laura Loomer and dozens of other high-profile conservatives?
He's a human being. He gets pissed off. You strike back, and he's got a bigger stick than most because he can. But I have a feeling they'll all be back in a week.
Oh, they're back. They didn't get banned. They've lost all their privileges.
Yeah, but I imagine that'll change in a week. Someone will talk to him and say, "Okay, calm down," and he'll say, "Yeah, you're right. I overreacted."
And let's keep in mind too, Laura Loomer is not exactly always on. She does have an agenda to a certain extent with most of the things that she covers.
She does.
So let's keep that in mind as well when we talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, she's a bit out there.
In her defense, though, I would say that she's broken some pretty big stories, and she's pretty persistent when it comes to that stuff. But anyway, let's move on, because this next one is a big topic. So we had Tommy Robinson booked twice to come on Survival Dispatch News. I've spoken to him before he was just thrown back in jail for his documentaries detailing all of the massive rapes, these they wanted to call them grooming gangs, but they're essentially rape gangs. And they put the number now at 250,000 British women and girls that have been raped by these migrants, invaders, Muslims, whatever the case may be. This is the entire chapter 1. So I'm obviously not going to play. It's an hour and 44 minutes long, but he exposed all of the stuff that's going on. And as we know, the UK will throw you in jail if you hurt somebody's feelings. That's not an exaggeration. I actually have a video of that coming up shortly, but I wanted to put it in here so it's in the brief. So if you want to go watch it and see what's really going on over there, you can. So Elon Musk has now got involved. Why is Tommy Robinson in a solitary confinement prison for telling the truth? He should be freed, and those who covered up this travesty should take his place in that cell. And on that case, I do agree with him. So it's called The Rape of Britain, and episode 1 is 1 out of, I can't remember now how many parts. There's a bunch of them. 4. Okay, so this one here, Nicole's story. Nicole was raped and pimped at the age of 11 by members of a grooming gang in Telford, one of the many cases in that area. A man is languishing in solitary confinement in a high security prison because he dared to speak out and tell the truth about the scourge, the industrialized rape, pimping, and molestation of little girls by depraved adult men. So, I mean, this is just insanity. This is 1984 on steroids. So I'm going to play this message. This was just before he was incarcerated again, which I want to say is approximately 60 days ago. And I can't remember how many years the sentence is, but it's not a short amount of time.
What can you do as an average person? The first thing you can do is speak. That's all. No one's asking you to go to battle, go to war. We can awaken the nation through speaking about these issues. Yeah. And when it's left down to a handful of people to speak, you give the opportunity to the state to crush those people. It isn't working on crushing us anyway, yeah? But it used to be a lonely place. But now there's so many more people speaking out. So my word to you is, you may think you're an ordinary people, but our entire movement and our history of our country is about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. So it's time to fight for your nation. It's time to fight for freedom of speech. Are you going to sit there and just, through cowardice, let your country disappear? Because I'm not. And so many more aren't. And do you know what's been so surprising? It's the women. The British women are awake. There's an army of mothers coming for you, Keir Starmer, for your establishment. There's an army of mothers mobilising. And they won't be silenced. So that's my message.
So interesting point there. He mentioned Keir Starmer, the current leader in Great Britain. Do you know what? All this stuff started in like the late 2000s, early 2010s. Guess who was the head of their equivalent of Child Protective Services? Keir Starmer. Yep. The guy's just absolutely crooked, and what's been allowed to unfold there is insane. I got a couple more I'm going to go through, and then I'll get y'all's comments on it. So even Andrew Tate is posting, "Save the UK. The natives will welcome the invading U.S. Army, 52nd state." I've seen a number of people from the UK say that recently. Next one up here. Some of us have been speaking out against the Muslim grooming gangs in Britain for decades, none more so than Tommy Robinson. Did something happen over the past day or two that everyone has suddenly woken up to this gargantuan tragedy? And I honestly don't know what sparked this interest all of a sudden, but I've been tracking this for a number of years. Like I said, I've spoke to Tommy a couple times. We had some scheduling issues. We were not able to get him on, but look how young he is here. And this goes all the way back to him speaking of the Muslim grooming gangs. I'm going to play the full minute and 27 seconds because the legacy media host here is a complete and utter asshole defending these animals who've been raping and victimizing these young girls.
The only one who's been murdered by a Muslim gang, you probably don't, I do. Do you know any 15-year-old girls that you know that you've grown up with that have been raped or pimped? You don't. So I don't expect you to understand the issues.
These are all personal issues of yours.
Personal issues in towns and cities like mine that are happening, and they're not happening with the Sikh community. They're not happening with the Jewish community.
And indeed, they're not happening with most Muslims.
No, they're happening within the Islamic community. This is what I'm saying, that it's an Islamic problem. And when I'm just a simple person, so I'm just a normal person, but when I'm looking at, I have to look for where this hatred is coming from.
So are you seriously suggesting there aren't white drug dealers and there aren't white gangs?
Of course I'm not. No,
or Sikh gangs or any other kind of?
No, I'm not. But I'm saying some of these specific issues are coming from the Islamic community, solely the Islamic community. Terrorists wanting to blow us up. Constant hostile activity towards our youth, all these problems, and from sitting back, there's got to be something it's coming from. None of the other communities are spreading it, so we're a symptom of the problem. The English Defence League.
You're claiming that community is spreading it. Actually, what we're talking about
Members
here.
of the community.
Yes, exactly. As you could talk about members of the
community.
white community doing all sorts of atrocious things.
Yeah, but not 24-year-old groups of 10 of them hanging around outside school gates.
You've never seen a white gang?
And purposely targeting.
Never seen a white gang?
Are we going to pretend that Muslim groups are not out there purposely targeting our youth and pimping them? Are we going to pretend it's not
You're
happening?
not pretending white people aren't doing that?
Then not in the same manner, not in the same group. They're saying it's a cultural thing.
Not in the same volume is really the key thing. So I've got a couple more tabs. I'm going to zip through them quickly and then get both your comments. This is from AJ. Tommy is in prison because he refused to stop exposing Islamic child kidnapping sex rings in the UK. They say he violated a court order when he put a film out exposing how the government was actually working with the pedo groups. Keir Starmer called for Tommy's arrest and needs to be put in prison himself for crimes against humanity. Tommy Robinson, you are a hero and we love you. So at the center of this as well has been J.K. Rowling. She was always a liberal for many years, but she's, drifted further and further to the right on the transgender stuff, but especially these rape gangs. The details emerging about what the rape gangs, why I call them grooming gangs. It's like calling those who stab people to death knife owners. Did this to girls in Rotherham are downright horrific. The allegations of possible police corruption in the case are almost beyond belief. When people went to the police, in some cases, the perpetrators mysteriously seemed to know. According to one victim who believes she was in a relationship with Bashrat Hussain when she was 15, the brothers had influence over some officers at South Yorkshire Police. She told Sheffield Crown Court Bash said he used to pay this person in CID and that this person would say what's happening with me, and he'd also tell him when he was going to get busted. These claims are now being investigated, but at least one case in the early 2000s, a victim's abuser seemed to be aware she was at a police station waiting to make a complaint against him. Next one up, pretty simple. Known pedophiles in the UK. What do you notice? And this is a very small sampling of, this has been going on for years for anybody who's been following this. Absolutely brutal. And last tab, then I'll get your comments. So check this out. This didn't happen too long ago, and it was posted today, but this happened last year. So British police capture and arrest an elderly man because some of his social media posts caused someone anxiety. So they've thrown over 3,000 hardened criminals out of prison early to make room for people who hurt other people's feelings online or who publish videos showing bad behavior on behalf of these Muslim invaders. 32-second video.
No. The British Hampshire police would realise how ridiculous this is. It is.
What did it need to come to?
Tell us why you escalated it to this level, because I don't understand. I posted something that he posted. You come to arrest me, you don't arrest him. Why has it come to this? Why am I in cuffs? Because there's something he shared, then I shared.
Because someone has been caused, obviously, anxiety based upon your social media page. That's why you've been arrested.
No.
Being arrested because you caused somebody anxiety from a social media post. Jeff, you first on Tommy Robinson's situation in that last video. You're on mute, Jeff.
You don't have a right not to be offended. Get over it. Life is a contact sport. And what amazes me is you've got governments enforcing this bullshit, and it's just because they can. And because the offended groups make a lot of noise and old white guys don't. And so they are just pandering to, be it the trans community, the gay community, the Muslim community, pick the community. But they are all preferred to the normal straight white community.
Fair enough. As to Your thoughts on Tommy Robinson in particular, as well as the other stuff?
I'm going to cause some people some anxiety here, so get over it. So the reason the attention's been focused back on Tommy Robinson again is because I believe he's been getting death threats in jail. They're keeping him in solitary confinement, granted, but I believe him or his family's been getting death threats. And so, according to Katie Hopkins and a bunch of other folks over in the UK, the idea right now is of more eyes that can be kept on Tommy Robinson, the harder it's going to be to get rid of him, if you understand what I'm saying. I believe that the original story that we heard with Nicole, I believe that was his cousin, and that was how he first learned about this, and that was when he started digging into this. And I've watched the entire series of Rape of Britain, and these people are just, they're not even humans. They're something else.
It's beyond the pale, as they would say. So now that you've said that, and thank you for tweaking me, I just found the video from the British Member of Parliament, an older lady who speaks to this. There's a longer video. Hopefully the short one, 20 seconds, covers the bases, but let me get it pulled up here and see if I don't do Facebook, so it's giving me a second of grief here, but I think I got it licked. She puts a really fine point on this.
He has the right to live their lives.
Let me back that up because she's saying nobody at the beginning.
Nobody has the right to live their lives being protected from offence or from insult or from hurt feelings. It is an occupational hazard of living in society. And if you really can't take it, become a hermit.
So it seems to be that in England and Germany in particular, that this has become an issue. There was somebody in the German parliament that a German citizen recently called him an idiot on X, and he's been arrested and put in jail because he called a member of the government an idiot.
Imagine this, though. Katie Hopkins got up there in Parliament and said the same exact thing, and they arrested her and put her in jail.
Right. Imagine that. So anyway, it's pretty horrific. Hopefully now that it seems to have caught fire here, around the globe actually now, that maybe Tommy will get a break, because what they're doing to him is again, it's beyond the pale. It's 1984 on steroids. All right, moving on to the next one here. We only have 2 stories left in chapter 2. Then we get into all the zany stuff in chapter 3. So this is good. Tom Holman warns mayors and governors, review Title 8 USC 1324. It is a felony to harbor illegal aliens. Don't cross that line. And this is a subject the general and I have discussed offline multiple times.
Quickly, what happens to a mayor or local police department chief that is under Democratic leadership that obstructs ICE in your federal agents that are helping get these deportations? What happens to them?
Well, first of all, if they don't help us get the hell out of the way, we're going to do it. If I got to send twice the amount of resources to that city, that's what we're going to do. If they would give us access to the jail, that would mean less agents in the community. For them pushing back and not letting us in the jail, it just means more agents are going to be in the community, so they're hurting themselves. Finally, I'll say this. They need to educate themselves. They need to review this. Title 8, United States Code 1324, III. Read about that and don't cross that line, because it is a felony to harbor and conceal an illegal alien from ICE. Read the statute, don't cross that line.
My prediction is it's not going to take too many municipal or county officials being arrested and put in jail for harboring illegals before they cave and they stop doing it. But I guess we'll see. Moving on to the last one for chapter 2 here. The biggest fear that WEF has is that there are going to be people that will not comply. So that's the World Economic Forum. In under a minute, Jebediah Bila breaks down what the globalists want and how to stop them from getting it. So this digital stuff is absolutely key, because without it, they can't enforce anything.
The biggest fear that the World Economic Forum has is that there are going to be people that will not comply. Their biggest fear is your fight for freedom. Their biggest fear is that you will make individual decisions for yourself and you will not follow their orders. So this digital stuff is absolutely key, because without it, they can't enforce anything. Without it, they can't mandate that you do something. Without it, they can't control your life. So I don't care if you're talking about carbon emissions and what's safe and effective as far as they are concerned. I don't care if they're talking about an experimental injection, a series of injections, whatever they may be, and what's safe and effective as far as they're concerned. This is not about those individual things. This is about the desire to control you from the outside in. And if they have a digital process whereby they can restrict your movement, your behavior, and your decisions with the click of a button, you are done.
So a little bit of background to what she's discussing there. Number one, this is part of the WEF's 15-minute city plan. So 15-minute city, you can walk to anything that you would need, and there's no need for you to be driving a car. And if you don't live in the 15-minute city and you drive a car in, then you get, a big toll to do so. And if you stitch that together with digital currencies, then you stitch that together with social credit scores, which are starting in some not so benign ways already in Western Europe and America, then you end up with what she's describing. Oh, you voted for Donald Trump and we don't like Donald Trump. So therefore you can't leave your 15-minute city for the next month, or you can't drive your car, or you can't go to the movies, whatever the case may be. It's really, really control freak stuff. Jeff, you first on CBDC's 15-minute cities and social credit scores.
Yeah, the whole central bank digital currency thing is just, you're basically handing them your wallet. And then every time you spend money, you have to say, Mother, may I? Go with gold, go with hard currency. Yeah, don't use that crap. And if people don't use it, they have no control. And they try to do that with, okay, we're going to do lockdowns, or we're going to close this. You can't go here. You can't do that. You can't drive your car. Yeah, that's when you just basically tell them to pound sand, quote the First Amendment, First and Second Amendment of the Constitution to them, and say, are you denying me my constitutional rights? And make them say yes, in which case you say, you have no more authority over me, and I'll do what I want anyway. And if you stop me, I'll consider it assault. We need more people to just basically stay up and say, go F yourself. We're not doing it. I'm never taking another government vaccine again. I can tell you that. And
Right.
I'm not going to use central bank digital currencies either, for that matter. And if they say your carbon footprint's too large, first thing I'm going to do is throw another log on the fire. I don't even care if it's not even cold outside. I will do 10 times worse what they think or what they want just to spite them, because I'm that kind of an evil little bastard.
Fair enough. Stu, your thoughts on this topic?
I have a shirt that says I'm a grumpy old vet and I do what I want. I will put my carbon footprint up their ass.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a great conclusion. Okay, so before we go into chapter 3, I mentioned a quote the other night ago, and I paraphrased it because I couldn't quite remember what it was. And one of our followers sent me the quote. Now I can't remember what their name is, but basically the quote is, there are 3 kinds of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. That's what I was trying to come up with there, Nego. So I appreciate you sharing that. All right, before we get into the zany headlines and stuff, I want to mention our friends at Black Forest Supplements and their NMN supplement here. There's links down below. This is supposed to be an anti-aging product. I can't swear to that, but I can tell you my energy level goes way up when I take this. S2's taking it as well. Notice the difference in mental acuity and sharpness. And, energy is the biggest thing that I'm looking for at this stage of my life. I'll be 56 next month. The native hydrate branch chain amino acids. Number one, they taste great, which is a rarity for BCAAs. And number 2, if you drink sodas and sweet teas, I'm telling you right now, if you swap it out for this within 24 hours, you'll notice a pretty significant jump in your energy level. And S2 actually is drinking the native hydrate BCAAs as well. Yeah, any comments?
Drinking some right now, in fact.
Same here. So It never goes. Cindy and I always have it on tap. All right. With that being said, we're going to get into the funny stuff in chapter 3. And this one really caught my eye. This is an old commercial, and you guys will remember it when I play it here. But this is a satirical account on X. New Cybertruck commercial just dropped.
Bet you can't do it again.
I mean, I can't remember what year that was, but that was a long time ago. And clearly it's not the Cybertruck, but it's a good play on what happened yesterday in Vegas. Hats off to whoever remembered that and found it. Next one up seems fitting today. This is just a reminder that Islam does not belong in America. Islam will not dominate the United States. And by the grace of God, it will not dominate Texas. This is our country.
I proclaim the name of the Lord Jesus Christ over the capital of Texas. I stand against Islam and the false prophet Muhammad. Islam will never dominate the United States, and by the grace of God, it will not dominate Texas.
That's going back a few years. I can't remember how many years, but it was a while ago that incident happened. Good for her. All right, next one up. The far right doesn't drive into crowds. The far right doesn't target Christmas markets. The far right doesn't blow up pop concerts. The far right doesn't gang rape white girls. The far right aren't 90% of MI5's terror list, which is the British equivalent of the CIA. And the far right isn't the problem. Far right is very real threat, says Keir Starmer. This guy is such a World Economic Forum putz. Not even funny. You guys want to make any comments on him?
Yeah, I think Keir Starmer should put on a shirt that says Mohammed socks and walk into a Muslim neighborhood in London. See what happens.
Yeah, I told you my wife was in London a few years ago for work, and she was staying in a really nice hotel, and she walked out on the sidewalk. She had some time. She wanted to go for a walk, and she went to the left instead of going to the right. And she said within a couple blocks, she was in the middle of whatever you want to call it now, you know, the equivalent of Kabul, Afghanistan, and downtown London. And she skedaddled out of there pretty quickly. And as you know, my wife's in good shape and she can defend herself, but it was not a good place to be. All right, moving on to the next one. Watch MSNBC's Morning Joe show highlight a damning chart of the illegal migration spike over the last 4 years under Joe Biden's failed policies. Well, they're John Brennan's and Obama's, but whatever.
So, Steve, let's turn to your second chart where you highlight how the border and climate change were major issues in the year that was.
The border, yes, that's exactly right, of course, Jonathan. The border was not Biden's finest moment, frankly. You can see what happened here. And Trump is not wrong when he talks about how border crossings were quite low. They were running about 74,000 a month when he left office. And they, in fact, did shoot up. Some of it was some things Biden said and some ways that they put a moratorium, for example, on deportations. But in fact, we did get up here almost to 300,000 a month. But what maybe people don't entirely know is that border crossings have come back down almost to where they were under Trump. They're running at about 100,000 at the moment. So we went up the hill and we went down.
Comments on this policy of opening the border. I mean, I'm just going to say one thing. The Democrats don't breed. They don't have children. There's all sorts of statistics out there to prove that. So bringing in these illegal invaders is their way of building up the number of voters who support their crazy party. And the Republicans are crazy too. Nobody needs to comment that we're idiots because we said Republicans and Democrats. They're all the same. They all suck balls. And we hate them just as much equally, but this is how the Democrats plan on getting more votes. Jeff, anything on the border? You're in a border state.
Well, yeah, if you look at the thing, the purple is the interesting thing. That's other countries. They're Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador. They're from this side of the planet, at least.
Yes.
Under Biden, those are the ones in the purple. Those are your Chinese. Those are your Afghans, those are your Pakistanis, your Indians, your Chinese, your Middle East terrorist types. You look under Trump, there weren't a whole lot of those guys.
So what do you say to the people who say you're racist for pointing that out? And these are people just like our ancestors not too many years ago that came to America for a better life.
We don't kill people. We didn't so I don't remember any of my German ancestors blowing up, markets and, killing people on a mass scale. Just saying.
I would go a step further. Our ancestors who came essentially from Europe, Western and Eastern Europe, came here with tangible skills and built this country. The people who've been coming across our southern border are not skilled. They're not educated. They're not intelligent. And many of them are on welfare. We spend $451 billion a year supporting illegals. There's only two items that are bigger than that: Social Security and our military budget. S2, you want to take a run at this? You don't have to. If your blood pressure's up, we can move on.
There's not a whole lot else I can say that I haven't said already.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you first crack on this. This is who the Democrats allowed to cross our border. This is who the Democrats flew in on private planes across our border, which, by the way, so that guy who's talking about 100,000, that's just walking across the border. What he's not telling you is the 200,000-300,000 a month that continue to be flown into the country to this day. And my two home states, Texas and Florida, have bore the brunt of that. Why is that? Because they're, conservative leaning states. But this is who the Democrats want to prevent Tom Homan from deporting. This is literally the definition of treason. You don't have to comment, S2. I can move on to the next one if you want.
No, I'll comment on it. That flag right there, that looks like the FBI ISIS flag. It says we love dicks.
Well, appreciate you translating that for us. All right, next one up. Proud Army brat. She's a pretty prolific poster on X. Several years ago, and only 20 minutes from my home, a sleeper cell of 16 foreign terrorists had set up a training camp. They were there for 18 months, plotting an attack on us, training with weapons on obstacle courses. This was in a very isolated rural area in central PA between two Amish farms. Thankfully, a farmer notified a good citizen who contacted authorities, and the compound was raided. I'll never forget the fear, as I have brothers in TS Intel that were worried about me. Imagine how infiltrated we are now with the influx of unvetted men coming through our border at will. She said an absolute mouthful there.
Give you a comment on this one too, if you like.
Go right ahead.
So we have the situation that we've had with the two bombers that allegedly had been contacting with each other at Fort Bragg, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
We have Routh, who has supposedly accessed Fort Bragg 147 times, which I've not seen the evidence supporting that. But either way, there's been other interesting developments out in that area as well, in that there have been certain people that have reported that there is a training camp out near Fort Bragg in the rural areas, because Fort Bragg basically is right in the middle of Fayetteville, which is Vietnam, on the other side of the base where this training camp was located. And they have been observed out there training with AK-47s, and there's also been some talk of certain level of explosives that have been seen there. And yet they can't do anything about it because they're on private property.
Right. Yeah. The same thing's been happening around Boise, Idaho. It's been going on in upstate New York for many years. Do you have anything you want to add before we move on?
Yeah, there's a thing called a search warrant. And it's funny how they can always get a search warrant on, white Christians who pray at abortion clinics, but they can't seem to ever get search warrants for, jihadis practicing with weapons in an organized manner on private property.
Well, that would be racist.
That's true. That would be racist.
You didn't get the memo on that? I'm just kidding. All right, moving on to the next one. Brendan Dilley, the prolific video producer. He's awesome, man. The U.S. intelligence agencies are actively recruiting and radicalizing jihadis from U.S. military bases, specifically Fort Bragg, to carry out attacks on U.S. soil, and have been doing so since at least 2009. Change my mind. I think that's a tongue-in-cheek comment for the most part, but potentially an element of truth there. Next one, breaking. Terror supporters, and I think that should say terrorist supporters, have now taken over the streets of Toronto yet again and are calling for global intifada. After the scenes from New Orleans, does the West still not understand that these extremists have no place in our society?
The high school called. They want their drum back.
Oh shit!
Yeah. How about the goat farmer called and wants his goats back? All right, this is a good one here. Don't worry, the New Orleans chief of police is on the case.
You know what's scary about that?
What?
They reported her as being 82.
Yeah.
She's only 65. She looks like she's 165.
Yeah, boy,
she looks mummified.
Yeah, crazy, huh? Just remember, if you are having a bad day, someone else is having one that's worse.
Oh. Damn. That's coming out of your check.
Oh.
Oh. What? Oh, that was good. That was good. I love it. This one's pretty good too. I want to do this so bad. Golly. All right, and this one here, ISIS is laughing at us. There's another DEI hire for you.
It's Meal Team 6.
Oh, sure is.
But they haven't lowered the physical standards for joining the FBI. Just
right. All right, woke. Adjective, a state of awareness only achieved by those dumb enough to find injustice in everything except their own behavior. And next one up, this is freaking hilarious. When a woman says 5 minutes, think like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter and both teams have all of their timeouts.
No shit.
Not my wife. My wife says if you're not there 15 minutes early, you're late.
Yeah, my uncle used to say that all the time. And this is a rather interesting bipod. No comment. All right.
I just hope she didn't eat beans.
Yeah, boy, howdy. All right. So moving in a somewhat similar direction, this is a Muslim wife wearing sexy lingerie for her husband. So I'm sure I'll get some hate mail from that. Bring it on. And we're all good with that. Let's see here. I've got a quick ad for one of our supporters, Flex Industries, good friend of mine, kick-ass triggers. This is a new AK trigger, which is going to be released imminently. These are legal triggers. They are not patent encumbered, and the performance is pretty spiffy.
AK Flex. AK Flex, the crazy part about this thing, it can fit in all platforms. This right here is in a 9mm. We running in the 7.62, 5.45, short, even in the Draco, the long 16-inch. AK Flex, baby.
So that's my buddy Reggie. That's not the guy who owns the company, but he's a super guy as well. And Tactical Carl does some of their content as well. But if you go to flexindustries.com and use the discount code SD, as in Survival Dispatch 1717, you get 17% off. And they've got some triggers. They got a G Flex trigger, fits in all Glocks, that is 100% legal, unlike a Glock switch that's got pretty good performance as well. And if you take a Glock, say like a Glock 19, and you put it in a like a CAA micro chassis that turns it into essentially a small SBR, the trigger works really well in that format. So anyway, when you support our sponsors, whether it's CCW Safe, Native Hydrate, Flex Industries, they give us compensation for running the ads. We do not get affiliate compensation, but that allows us to put in countless hours. I'm telling you, I started on our brief for tonight, this sit rep, at 3:35 a.m. this morning Eastern time. Takes a lot of time and effort. And then you heard S2, by the way, our Signal chat. Holy crap. So if you sign up for a paying membership on our Patreon, not just the free one, not only do you get all the content, you get to be part of our private Signal chat. Jeff, what's the biggest number that you've seen when you've gone to bed and got up in the morning as far as unread messages?
600.
You got me beat. Mine's like 500 and change. It's just an incredible amount of information being shared there. All right, home stretch here. Homework for the night. What can you do in light of the main topic of the night, which is these terrorist attacks that have been happening? So I pilfered this from a guy named Chad Nelson. I've also invited him to come on Survival Dispatch News. So it's at Chad, CHAD _ Nelson on Twitter, X. And if you download the brief, which is free for tonight, just go to patreon.com/survival dispatch. The link to his profile is in there, but this is some pretty good advice. And then I'll give Jeff and S2 a chance to follow up. And this was written yesterday, by the way. So following today's tragic terrorist attack, here are some quick personal security tips that could save your life. These are things you should always keep in mind. Number one, maintain situational awareness. He's got 5 points under that. So be aware of your surroundings, identifying potential exits, cover, and concealment. Do not stare at your phone when walking city streets. So that's something we say all the time. Put down your weapon of mass destruction, right? Phone down, eyes up. Next point under situational awareness, watch for unusual behavior, suspicious objects, or sudden crowd movements. Next point, know multiple evac routes from any location you frequent. And the next one, identify potential defensive positions in hard cover, concrete walls, engines, blocks, thick trees. I will add that if you're in an urban environment, you've got X and Y axis, but you also have the Z axis. So pay attention to what's above and not just left, right, forward, backwards. If you encounter a terrorist attack or other violent situations, get off the X. So that's basically the X is where you're going to get smoked. Move immediately upon identifying a threat. The X is your position when the attack begins. Move perpendicular to the attack, not directly away. Use quick, unpredictable movements to make targeting difficult. By the way, you'll see highly trained individuals running to the problem and not away from the problem, because if you're armed and you hightail it, you turn around and run, there's a good chance you're going to get shot in the back if you're truly in a spot where you can't get conceal and cover. And you're far better off closing that distance as you sling some lead. Hopefully you never end up in that situation, but take professional training instead of my word. Next one up, put hard cover. I used that one, did that one already, pardon me. Last one, continue moving until you reach a safe location. And he says, if you have any questions, reach out. So at Chad _ Nelson on X, good advice. And I saw him answer every single person's comment on his post. Jeff, anything else you recommend if people are confronted by a terrorist attack?
Well, yeah, kind of sounds obvious, but a problem avoided is a problem solved. Don't be somewhere that might draw that. New Orleans on New Year's Eve, like New Orleans on Mardi Gras, Central, Times Square on New Year's Eve. Those are targets. Don't be where the target is. There is nothing going on there on New Year's Eve that won't be going on there 2 days before, 2 days earlier. You want to be memorable, but you also don't want to be dead. Avoid those things. It's the equivalent of walking through, a town full of pickpockets with $100 bills hanging out of your pocket. You don't.
I like how Tony Blauer summarizes that with 2 words: choose safety.
Yes.
It's good advice. S2, your advice.
So I think the biggest threat that we face right now in light of the current events and the intel that's been coming in is we're looking more at more potential bombing attacks. There's going to be a lot of bomb threats. You always want to be left of bang with these kinds of things. And when I say left of bang, it's the equivalent of don't be on the X. But you're taking proactive measures to be left of bang so that you're never on the X in the first place. And like Jeff said, avoid large crowds. Avoid large venues because those are going to be soft targets. Have a plan if you are out with your family. Have a plan of what's going to happen, because if an explosion goes off or something else happens and you're like a car ramming into a restaurant or something like that, crowds are going to disperse. People are going to get run over. There's going to be chaos. And one of you two, if you've got kids with you, you grab your kids and you hightail it off, but have a plan to reconnoiter later on at a location that only the two of you know or the kids know, but have that plan with you and your family to be able to get back together and when the chaos is over. And thirdly, if things like this happen, and human nature is that with good people, we want to help. Okay. When people are hurt, they want to help. So one of the worst things that you can do in the situation, if a bomb goes off, is to go towards the source of that explosion, because chances are very good that there's going to be a secondary device where they've used that, as Jeff mentioned earlier in the show, to draw first responders and other people into help. Thirdly, have medical supplies like an overloaded IFAC or medical bag in your truck loaded down with medical supplies such as tourniquets, pressure bandages, and things like that. So that way, in the event that you can help, you can drag the victims away from the scene rather than going to it, get them behind cover, and you can help apply that first aid, but get some training on that as well. So those are my recommendations.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's probably the area that people get the least amount of training on, because it's not sexy, right? It's fun going to the range and shooting guns. It's fun running and gunning and getting trained with that. It's not so fun doing the medical stuff. I want to give a shout out to a young fellow in his 30s in Portland. His company name is mymedic.com. We have no affiliate relationship. We don't get paid any commissions by him. I don't even have a discount code for you. But what I do have is a hard time seeing stuff inside of bags that have a dark interior, number one, and that stuff that's not accessible. His bags unzip, these unfold sideways as well, and you can lay this out on the ground and get everything you could possibly need. I really, really like this guy's choices. He's a paramedic. He's an active duty paramedic. So there's some interesting choices in here. You won't see in other kits, but the way this unfolds, and again, it unzips all the way back here and the wings fold out. There's no, trying to find stuff in the bottom of a bag that's disappeared, which has got me so many times. It's not even funny. My mother fell a couple months ago while she was here visiting us, and it was a pretty bad fall. And I got the call that she was on the sidewalk over on A1A. So Cindy and I, we jetted over there as fast as we could. So my cousin who called, and even though we had flashlights and all that kind of stuff, man, to try and find what we needed for her injuries, by the time I found what I needed, the paramedic showed up. So, and the problem was I didn't have that bag in the truck. I had an older bag in the truck and kicked myself in the ass for doing that. So anyway, with that being said, just want to quickly mention that we have added a restricted section to the end of the sit rep and the brief for these episodes that has content that we can't put on some of the platforms like YouTube. Tonight's brief has links to the videos of people being hit in New Orleans in the attack there. So if you want to see the full video on that stuff, and I am not a fan of sweeping this stuff under the rug. It doesn't, all it does is it doesn't give people a true interpretation of how evil our enemies are. I believe that as adults, we should not be shielded from this stuff. So anyway, that's in the brief as well. I liked your words on planning, by the way, S2, and it made me immediately think of the old adage that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So having a plan is imperative. If you've got the brief S2, you can do the conflicted question and we'll wrap it up.
I've got it. Okay, so for you folks that are first timers with us or aren't generally with us a lot and don't know the rules, I'm going to read off a conflicted question, and we want your participation with your comments in the comment section. And last, we want to see more of the thumbs up and the like buttons, please. There we go. Okay, so here we go. Someone's crisis is another person's opportunity. With that in mind, could you get ahead if the economy of your country were to collapse, and how?
I'll go first this time, Jeff, just because I've encountered this a number of times as being an entrepreneur. So how do you get ahead when the bottom falls out of the economy? It's the solution is easy to come up with, but hard to implement, and that's hard work. So if you set goals in anything, and then you come out with a plan and you attack it and you fail, then you back up, you come up with another plan and you attack it until you actually end up succeeding. I've navigated some pretty ugly financial stuff over the years. After I left the Sun Microsystems world, high-tech world, we had a consultancy. We catered to Fortune 1000 companies. One of our clients was Nortel Networks. I had a ton of systems engineers on staff there when I inherited a contract from CSC Computer Services Corporation. And we had a really unique deal with Nortel at the time where we were getting paid every 2 weeks. And that meant that I could, pay these heavy payrolls for systems engineers. We got a letter from them in December of 2008 that said, as of January, all contractors would be paid on the 15th of each month going forward. January 14th, 2009, they declared bankruptcy. There were 25,100 creditors. Less than 100 of them were secured creditors. I was not a secured creditor, and it almost bankrupted me in the process. And then we had 13 more clients go bankrupt that year, 2009. And I said to my operations manager at the time, I said, one more client declares bankruptcy, we will be right behind them in the bankruptcy line because we can't take it anymore. But what did? We worked our ass off. We came up with some new products for our customers that had a ton of value, and we burned the midnight oil coming up with those and implementing them. And we managed to survive that economic downturn that a lot of people didn't. And it just took hard work and ingenuity. So Jeff, go to you next, and we'll let S2 close now.
Yeah, I'd say you got to go back to basic economics, and you've got to look at, okay, the money may not be worth a lot, so you may have to be bartering, and you need to be able to come up with a good or service that is actually needed and wanted, because all the nice to haves are going to be the first things cut. I would not want to be the cable guy when the economy goes to crap, because the first thing people are going to do is cut their cable. So you look at what you have and what you can do, and find out what is really necessary to other people. And it might be, we've talked about it before, vices. It might be, if you've got, a liquor cabinet full of whiskey, you might be able to sell that and barter that for food or whatever else you need. But you've got to go back to basic economy 101. Think, you're in biblical times, and you're going to trade your carpentry skills for, a bag of wheat, because that's maybe what it gets down to. But do your own assessment of your own skills, your own abilities, and your own goods, and then find a way to basically profit from them.
Good advice. S2, bring her home.
I have a certain set of skills that I have developed over a very long time that make me a nightmare for people like them. I have a lot of skills. We'll put it this way. I've developed a lot of skills. I've gotten really good at some things over the years that I've looked at what would be needed if the world were to collapse tomorrow. And like Jeff said, some of these are little niche areas. As far as bartering, bartering supplies eventually runs out. So you got to find a way to be able to replenish those supplies. And to be able to do that, you have to have the skills to be able to apply in order to replenish those supplies for you so that you can continue on with that kind of a lifestyle. But eventually you can get ahead if you have those kinds of skills. It's one of the advantages of having been homeless at one point or two in my life, of knowing how to survive with very little money.
Good advice. So actually, I got one last thing before we close it out here. So for y'all wondering where John Wheaton has been, he's had a sick family member, a youngin', and he hasn't slept in a couple days. He just got back from the hospital after surgery, but he just sent me this picture that came from his sister originally. There's our co-host John Wheaton in his younger years. You wouldn't even recognize him, would you? So all right, that is it for tonight. We will be back tomorrow night. Until then, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and God bless America.
God bless.
Rallies Up magazine, let me begin. I came to win, battle me, guard your chin. I won't ever slack up, commies better back up. Try to cheat again and you'll the whole country act up. Get up, stand up, come on, throw your hands up. If you got the feeling, jump across the ceiling. MAGA, let the love flow, Democrats for up. Yo, we know it's do or die, we taking it all back. So, feeling, funkin', amp central force when we got more fun. Bust it out, retribution, Dealey's team. The memes can get meme, hitting lids coast to coast with on my one machine. I came to get down, I came to get down. So get out your seat and jump around, jump around, jump around, jump around. Trump up, White House bound. Trump, 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 Trump. Everybody jump, Trump, Trump, Trump. Everybody jump, Trump, 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 Trump. I'll serve your ass like tiny meatball. If you step out of line, you're taking a fall. Word to your moms, ballparks and farms. I got more rallies than Bible got psalms. And just like the prodigal son, I return. Anyone stepping in me, you'll get burned. Cause I got voters and you ain't got none. If you want a battle, come and get some. But if you do, you're a fool, cause DT is the best. After we take your seat, then you can protest. I got the skill, come get your fill. Cause when it's said and done, I'm standing still. I came to get down, I came to get down. So get out your seat and jump around, jump around. Jump around, jump around. Trump up, White House bound. Trump, 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 Trump. Everybody jump, Trump, Trump, Trump. Everybody jump, Trump, 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 Trump.